From simps to sigmas, tonight we're diving deep into the digital zeitgeist, peeling back the layers of our online culture and how it's impacting our population. More specifically, the Gen Z and women that find themselves posing online naked for money. In an era where the click of a single button can connect us to literally anything on earth, we find ourselves stuck in a moral conundrum. How do we strike a balance between admiration and extreme over-obsession? Or more poignant, between healthy human relationships and those formed via platforms designed to seduce young men into paying, in many cases, large sums of money just for the opportunity to see under a woman's dress, of whom they'll never meet. Known colloquially as simps, these men will hyper-obsess over bikini models, commenting on every picture with hard eyes, gushing compliments, and the most they ever get in return is an occasional like back or an automated message promoting the latest pay-per-view video of that girl. It almost feels as though we're in a battle for the very soul of the internet. So today what we're going to start with is a clip that John found on TikTok that embodies what I would call a simp. Let's give it a look.
Sky Bree, everyone.
Oh, whoa. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joshua. Happy birthday to you. Woo!
Oh my God. So bro went in at the end there. John, who is Sky Bree? Why did you send us this video?
So she's a OnlyFans content creator. Is that a nice word? That's the nicest term I can use.
She's an artist.
Adult entertainer, I think.
I refrain from using the term mattress actress. So I saw that clip. I sent it to you immediately, and you quoted it in our run-up, and you were like, oh, John. Excuse me, no John would do that, okay? Joshua here in this clip is kicked out of the J-Name Club, which is a very exclusive, fun place to be. He's no longer part and parcel of it. This clip said a lot to me, and I could probably spend a 40-minute episode on it, but I'll put it succinctly and quickly, okay? One is, even think back 10 years ago. Would you ever, in a public place with who I assume is his family and friends, put somebody who does that for a living on a cake to be delivered to you in front of your entire family? Not only that, the waiter knew who she was too. And that shows to me that OnlyFans is not only here to stay, it's a cultural institution. So think of us right now on a podcast, right? We were about 10 years old. There was no thing as a podcast. But if I were to tell someone today, as I did, I'm going to be on a podcast. Oh, sure. We have a whole new generation, kids who are 10 and 15 years old now. Like, OnlyFans is all they know as existing, right? So when I see something like that, when it's so mainstream, I mean, that was no different than if they put a beautiful actress who's in normal movies on it. It's just socially acceptable. So it shows that it's here to stay, A, which is alarming. B, listen, maybe that young man presents with some other things going on. And if he does, I'm sympathetic to it, but it kind of falls upon his family and friends that they're allowing that to happen. And then B, there's the culture surrounding it of not only do I have this woman who does this for a living on my cake in a public place having my birthday, then I'm going to stuff my face in a sexual manner. What's the part I had to look away? Onto the cake itself, because this is just accepted behavior now, right? So it's hyper-sexualized. So not only that, we have the mediums now to be hypersexualized. The women who are on there, and men too, people who are on there are now becoming mainstream stars to the point where you can celebrate them in a public place. And then you yourself can do an expression of inappropriate hypersexuality in response to it. And this is where we are now as a culture. It's normal. No one's looking at that and like batting an eyelash. You know, if you look at the comments, it's no one's saying what I'm saying, where it's like, bro, what's really good with this? They're like, oh yeah, Sky Bree, she's hot, or good for bro, or I would have done the same thing to that cake. So that clip, while revolting, is a statement of where we're at. These girls are mainstream, and a man like that, listen, I don't want to poke fun at the guy. Maybe there are issues he's presenting with. Do I think he has this cornucopia, this wonderful access to a bunch of women that want to do face into the cake type activity with him? I do not.
Yeah. Well,
I do not. And he's totally content with that.
I think that's what we're seeing, right?
Because he has these mediums to access that.
Now, we're hinting at some guy that probably couldn't attract his own female in real life, maybe doesn't have that many friends with going out to bars and stuff like that where they would even go and meet women. But I would say, actually, I've seen online, I think of this bodybuilder, Larry Wheels. Do you guys know him? And he's big on Instagram.
Yes.
He came out and revealed that he's famous. He's rich. He's got almost 1 million followers on Instagram. And he came out that he blew all his money. He's broke because of OnlyFans. So not only is it somebody that can't attract a female in real life, but somebody who could arguably have any female they want are still promoting this in this lifestyle. So it's very ubiquitous. It's strange. John, I loved what you said, that the family probably should have been like, hey, Joshy, let's not do the porn star on the cake this year, you know. And then when he licked it, you could kind of hear him go, oh, you know. But it's a tough scene. Exactly. And you have to imagine that happened in some sort of Chuck E. Cheese, because you got to pray it wasn't in a Michelin star restaurant. Just very.
It looked like not a bad spot.
Yeah, very strange behavior. But I mean, hey, Mike, I know that you've been talking this week and looking into the banning of TikTok. I know that that's probably a little bit separate, maybe less nudity than OnlyFans, how it's geared. But we've also heard the same out of that platform, right? That there's a lot of inappropriate content and stuff that is pretty culturally reprehensible. And maybe the hinting is from our Congress people that China's pumping this information into us. Is that kind of what we're finding here?
So I wouldn't lay the blame fully at TikTok. Sure, they're trying to, right? But does not every other algorithm of every other social media platform do similarly? Do they not stuff down your throat exactly what you looked at, right? So it's very easy, no matter what platform you are, after a few likes or something like that, to have content geared towards you. And like I said, on every platform, there is no shortage of women and men, you know, selling and commodifying their body, right? As, you know, is of concern towards, you know, the moral decay argument. I would make a distinction that it shouldn't just be TikTok, like I said, Blaine, but it is a pervasive problem in society.
Yeah. So I read that legislation, and that's something that we're definitely going to talk about a lot. And actually, people don't know this, but within that bill, there is the way that it's written. I don't believe that it actually names TikTok in this way, that we're banning TikTok. They're actually writing legislation that gives the executive branch the power to determine if a media or a communications company is a foreign adversary and if there's money invested in it. So when I hear that, I think, wait a minute, OnlyFans as well is a media company. I'm sure it's United States based, but who knows what seed capital they've got or what kind of investors they've got on their board. And guess what? If any of those people are Russian, then it's very possible that these could be, these websites like this could be shut down as well. And we talked about the negative side, right? The simps. Us three, of course, we're Sigmas. We don't subscribe to that school of thought. But the women and the content creators, they've now become entrepreneurs out of this. This will be their lifeline. And same with TikTok. A lot of people have built their careers on these apps. So to have them ripped away by government actually goes against my libertarian leanings. I mean, we should have the ability to do what we want, even if it will have terrible implications for your ability to start a family later. If you're a woman and a man, you can't attract a man later because of this, right? Because of your past. But wouldn't we say that they're consenting adults? They have the right to do this, right, John? They have the right.
I would totally agree with that, actually. And when it comes to sensitive topics like this, I'm actually pretty, let's call it sex positive, right? Like, I can't blame the girls for doing this, but you have to remember when this platform started, it was like bikini pictures and lingerie pictures that people would do. Right, and then it became like more major league style stuff, you know what I mean? Like 95-mile-an-hour fastballs, if you get what I'm saying. And my issue is not with the girls, because I'm saying, listen, if you have what it takes to make that lifestyle for yourself and go through it and you're cool with the ramifications, listen, how's it different than going for the NFL in some way, right? You're going to play in the NFL for 10 years, but you know you're going to present with injuries and all sorts of potential for CTE down the line. You know that certain lifestyles, right? Like, Coop, you're a hardworking man. Mike, you're a hardworking man. We're all out here 80 hours a week. Do I think this is the best thing for my blood pressure in my life, that I'm killing myself every week? No. Am I going to pay for it down the line? Yeah, probably. But I want the short-term gains because it's giving me a nice life. It's no different. And I don't blame the girls for doing it. Go and get your money. I'm not going to sit here and use slurs and call them names. No, I totally get it. My problem's with the men and their consumption of it, right? It's no different than you can go to 7-Eleven, get an 18-pack of beer, you're partying with your boys before you go out. That's great. Yeah. But if you go get one every day, it's not 7-Eleven's fault. Your money's green, your Apple Pay goes. You're choosing to buy that every day, and now you've got a problem. The problem is, and akin to the Larry Wheels conversation, is that the dopamine release of sexual activity now has been commodified into the digital realm, and you can get it so easily. Right? It's less bad in Larry Wheel's situation because a guy like that can correct it and kind of transmute that into going out into the real world. But when guys have never had the shot now can have access to these like gorgeous women and just go and click a few buttons. And if you read the comments, and this is my huge issue with it, right, is that you'll see a gorgeous girl on TikTok, you'll see a gorgeous girl on social media, and the first comment's not like what it would have been 5-10 years ago, like a normal guy, like, come to Long Island, baby. You know what I mean? It's,
yeah.
Oh, do you have it? Do you have it? Chili pepper emoji with the question mark? Like, it's just, right away. I know I don't have a chance with you. I just want to know if I can watch you have sex with somebody else on the computer and pay you for it. Also, if you're really into her, you want to watch her have sex with somebody else? Like, are we good? You know, so that is the issue. That is the overlying issue. Because if you look at Gen Z rates of relations, let's call them, and you can pull up that chart, maybe when we post this, the rate that they're having things happen in real life is at the lowest point of any previous generation. Right now, was it declining generation over generation? Sure, of course it was. But now it's like alarmingly low, because why would you want to deal with the ups and downs, the nuances of an actual human person when the computer can just give it to you like that for $4.99?
Right. You're talking about how the Gen Z is connecting less physically and less engaged in relationships. There's more virgins and, you know, all of this kind of downtrends. However, the chart that I think you were referencing, and here it is. The chart shows that out of Gen Z women, it's now 30%, a third of Gen Z girls identify as lesbian or bisexual, a third. So the uptick in this school of thought has led to now literally a third of people. I mean, how many men are now going to be left unable to find a woman if you have a potentially 50-50 distribution in your high school, right? How do you approach one third of them are lesbians? You can't go date them. You can't expect them to be your friend. So wouldn't this lead then to the need for this marketplace in a way of selling sex?
So I'll cut in here, actually, if I could. I think we're touching on something, right? So we definitely have like a porn addiction problem in our society, and then that kind of ties into OnlyFans or any of that adult content. When you are with anything, but not just porn, but you know, porn being such a massive source of dopamine release, when you're just given all of these choices, no matter how much there is, whether it's flipping through Netflix or live TV satellite, and you have hundreds and hundreds of options, no matter what you choose, you're going to be ultimately dissatisfied with it, because you're always thinking in the back of your mind the what if options of all these other choices. And now you compound that with, you know, real life important things like developing relationships with other humans that you plan on spending the rest of your life with, right? It can make sex dissatisfying, right? We find that like asexuality or troubling, you know, ability to have just intimate sexual relations in Gen Z and even the younger millennials and stuff like that. And I think it kind of ties into, you remember growing up, like we had American Pie, and I'm not going to say that you needed these movies, but there was this joke amongst the German foreign exchange students came to my high school. We want to go to the American Red Cup parties, and then it kind of dawned on me, right? Like our models for what a party should look like, you know, are all those, you know, coming of age, college / late high school party looking movies where you're, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. And I wonder if being on the internet and having so much other agency has those kinds of consequences, right? Like I applaud Gen Z for their ability to experience so many different things and be whatever they want, but at the same time, right, like it feels like they're missing out on such crucial milestones that we faced when we were kids. You know, you got to have that first major breakup where you got to realize your whole life is not about that one person, right? Like you got to realize that, you know, what that means for you and what how you grow as a person. And even through successful relationships, you learn, you know, what was right and wrong and how you can just improve as a person. And a lot of those opportunities are missed, right? You know, be it digitization or just less in-person meetings. I think you know, a lot of the younger people don't have those same experiences.
Well, we watch movies like Adam Devine was in Jexy, or I think it was Joaquin Phoenix maybe in that other one where there was a Siri type love interest, right? They fall in love with robots. I mean, you have the Apple Vision Pro. You could basically exist in a digital world for the rest of your life if you wanted. John talked about Wall-E chairs last week. I mean, John, is it the end of the world to have a digital relationship? Heck, it might be easier in a lot of cases. You don't have to worry about spending money, sexual transmitted diseases. You know, you don't have to, you could be getting catfished, but if it's only online, who cares, right? What's the downside? It's a good thing.
How do you procreate?
Okay.
How do you continue the species? So you guys want to talk about movies. I think there's a movie that ties in. And if you look into the notes that we had before we came on here, something I wanted to tie into. Ready Player One. Great book, great movie. Everyone should watch it, right? Because it's what we're turning into. You have people that have an embarrassment of riches in the digital realm. And then if you watch where they actually live in the IRL tangible world, they're in these trailer parks stacked upon piles of trash on top of one another, but they don't care because when they put that VR headset on, they're rich and their avatar looks great, right? So why do you have to worry about what you're doing in the physical world if your avatar looks so good? That was my big issue with GTA 6. And I love Grand Theft Auto. I played way too much Grand Theft Auto growing up, which probably explains a lot of other things that I will not talk about on a public platform. But if you look at that, you see people and like they're, I leveled up my character. I drive this car. I wear this outfit. Like, dog, like you could do it out in like the real world too. It's a little harder, but it's more fulfilling.
You can level up in real life.
You can level up in real life's a video game, and that's something else I put in is that, you know, the real world is never going out of style, and I'm aware of the digitization of business these days, right? I'm a cryptocurrency guy myself. I realize the blockchain technology is the future, etc. But the real world's never going out of style, and that I spoke a bit to the point of business last time we were together. And what I do now for a living is very phone intensive and meeting intensive, right? You have to basically contact plain old strangers that own buildings and go and put yourself in front of them and negotiate deals. Listen, that's never going anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, maybe 200, 300 years to outlive us all. That's never going anywhere. You see so much about marketing campaigns and email campaigns and, I run these SEO ads, I run these ads. That's great, and that's a wonderful platform. But at the end of the day, to go back to when I was talking about office buildings and things being outsourced too, right? Jobs being outsourced. I know so many guys, maybe in the tech sector, like I said last time, someone overseas can do your job for pennies on the dollar. And I hear these sob stories in my personal life, and friends come to me. I say, yes, maybe that person overseas can do your tech job for pennies on the dollar. But could they show up to a meeting like you, present like you, speak to others like you, leave an emotionality? Because at the end of the day, what is sales other than the transference of emotion? How do you transfer emotion? To be with somebody, ideally in the same room talking face to face or over the phone. So I think when I talk about all these other issues, even the spicier ones, I know it's funny, but at the end of the day, my overarching thing is that you got to be good at the IRL game because that's not going anywhere. We're still organisms that need to interact face to face.
Yeah, having been in sales now a decade, I can absolutely echo that. In fact, a lot of these motivational speaker guys that teach about sales strategies and all of that will say, you have to make your own luck. You have to get out there, but make your life a video game, right? How do you turn your interactions? How do you make your life a video game to level up in real life? How do you check these boxes and complete these side quests and make sure that you're doing everything you need to reach that next level? And as soon as you can kind of translate that gamification into your day-to-day life, I've tried to do it, and actually as simple as just using a to-do list, right? You get all of your things done, then you reward yourself with, I get to take my break or my lunch, or I get to go do this next project now because I've finished everything. And it's the same way with developing leads. But when I first got my sales role, when I went to the college career fair, actually, and they threw a foam football at me and I caught it. And I said, I'm looking for any job, but I don't want it to be sales, anything but sales. And I was so foolish to say that at the time. I turned out to be a fantastic person because I like to talk to people. And that's the biggest skill. And what I've learned is I've developed and seen every aspect of the business being in sales. I get to see how the operations team works, how the billing team works, how the administrative team works. And I liaise with all of them and work with all of them. And then, like you said, John, I then go and physically stand in front of a customer in their building, in their work site, and then we have a conversation, and it's the rapport that we've built, the back and forth and the camaraderie between that customer and I that then ultimately leads to that deal. We're all selling the same service at the end of the day in some way, unless you're a major innovator, but right, it's that in person. So very important, hard to get rid of, although it is the writing on the wall a little bit, right? If you, with Zoom and all this, right, we're not in the same room and we're having a very detailed and nuanced conversation. We get to expose our...
But it's an extension of that, right? And a problem is, and listen, I'm not anti-STEM. Those are great careers and stuff. But again, if you're like coding or something like that, you're running that risk of being outsourced, right? You're doing something like that. And these college kids, the problem is you see careers like that and they bait you in like, oh, you make $100,000, you make a little more. It's kind of nice. Like the hard skills will get you paid off rip, like off the bat. But look around the world. The soft skills guys rule the world. The soft skills guys are the CEOs. The soft skills guys are the elected officials. The soft skills guys are the titans. And that's what I try to convey when I speak to people is that might not happen for you right off the bat. Like you, go on the career fair, try and figure it out. Look what you've made of yourself, and you've done fantastically, right? If you leverage your soft skills, maybe the beginning of the ride's a bit bumpy, right? But we're always surfing, but the beginning of the ride's a little bumpy. But once you're able to really lock that in, you can ascend to heights that people who are just relying on the hard skills that are capped can't. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but that brings up the point, right, that people are building their careers on this stuff. So how can you level with the fact that the person who made $1 million last year off of simply TikTok alone, let's say that they're not able to operate in 1 month? I mean, what would that person do? Do they have to go become a janitor, or will they have another way to make their ends meet? I'm not sure I know the answer to that, and I think that they don't either.
No, and it's not fair to take that away from them. That being said, I know I was talking about IRL, but the digital world, if your content creating is an extension of that, if you have physical talents or if you have something going for you enough where you attract 1 million followers, and you're doing that kind of numbers off of TikTok, you do have enough going for you that has transference to other realms of life. Absolutely.
Fair enough. Yeah, or you have that niche, whatever it may be. I guess everybody influencers different.
Yeah, you have that niche, or you have a name for yourself.
I would argue that unfortunately this TikTok, or I should say, no, it's the TikTok ban as it's colloquially known, right? But as you said, the legislation doesn't specifically call for that. But it essentially acts as a handout to other social media companies, right? Because they're not going to be the target of these. So it really is handing off a monopoly to them and never really solving any of the fundamental issues that we have in the online world.
We all know what the TikTok ban is, though. We all know what it is, right? The U.S. government can tell Meta what to do.
Absolutely, right? Exactly. It's much easier to
They can't tell China what to do.
And
under the guise of, oh, it's China. Oh, I'm acting in your best interests. No, they're not under our thumb, and we don't like it. That's all it is.
Ultimately, that's what it boils down to. Yep.
So Tucker
and Mike, we have commonality there. We totally agree.
Tucker Carlson and Dan Crenshaw got in a Twitter spat this week because Dan Crenshaw came outside after voting yes on the ban TikTok bill, and he basically spoke to the media and said. He answered a couple questions, but he said something along the lines of, this is necessary, China is spying on us, and then was asked by a reporter, do you feel that United States intelligence agencies are also spying on the United States citizens? And he basically said, what are you, an idiot, to the reporter? No, of course not. Get out of my face until you have an example. So the clip then cuts to the reporter following him walking away, and he goes, what about this example? I'm blanking what it was, but there's so many examples of it. And
FISA court.
Right. So he hops in his black SUV and drives away. So Tucker Carlson tweets him out and goes, this is Dan Crenshaw lying to you. He's a liar. And not only are they spying on you, the TikTok bill doesn't even explicitly ban TikTok. It gives the Biden administration the plenary power to ban any communications they want, as long as it has foreign involvement from a quote-unquote adversary. So I did some digging, and I wanted to see, okay, Elon Musk and X, they've been in the news lately. They've been a little controversial if they, depending who you're talking to or reading. Well, turns out that when Elon Musk bought this company for $44 billion, well, about 5% of that was from Qatar and from other various venture capitalists that are located in the other countries, right? So all of a sudden, if now the Biden administration wants to go and say, hey, Qatar is on the outs here, it's iffy, we need to ban this app, they could shut down the operation of X just because they disagree with it, in a sense, right? They don't need to justify their position. The power's been granted.
So there are some limitations on there, right? So to define what is an adversary of the United States has to come with congressional bipartisan approval, right? So they have to make that designation. There's certainly some checks and balances, but it always raises the concern of whatever power that you're giving to the central government, they're never going to, willingly relinquish. And then the question is always, you have to ask is, well, these are maybe adversaries now, but who gets to define what is an adversary later, as you're leading to, right? So the next administration, if you're less than favorable for, right? What powers are you giving to the central government and what their ability is? Thankfully, Twitter is because the ownership is below. I think the market's about 20%, if I'm not mistaken. So certain companies like Twitter would escape the clutches of this legislation for sure. And it's not that the bill doesn't have some merits on it, right? It's if any of our tech companies wanted to operate in China or Russia or any of these companies, they have to follow those owners' regulations. I just find it a little hypocritical of us behaving exactly like our adversaries, right? It weakens our moral credibility in our argument.
Yeah, well,
right?
that was something that Elon was interviewed by Don Lemon this week, very famously, because Don Lemon had a deal to be exclusive, I believe, on X, and he was going to have this special show, and he partnered with Elon Musk. Apparently, they'd inked a deal. He'd done it with a few other people, like Tulsi Gabbard and Paris Hilton had signed these exclusivity deals to boost the platform. And during the interview, it turned out to be so contentious, but in like a sleazy way from Don, that Elon, the very next day after the interview, before it even aired, after it was recorded, he reached out and says, "You're no longer going to be exclusive with us. We're not going to enter into any partnership. See you later. Still post on X, but we're not going to be paying you for this program. This is BS." And he actually literally said he's just doing a continuation of CNN and the fake news, right? So it's a show that these folks are in the news. This technocracy of Twitter 1.0, they were completely controlled by the government, and the government will say, "Oh no, we only suggested bans. We never enforced bans." But there's a lot of counter evidence to that. When you look at the groups like CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, Chris Krebs famously says, it's my favorite quote because it's so doublespeak. My friend Calum pointed this out to me. "We had the most secure election in history." Well, when a government official tells you that we've secured the election, what does that sound like to you, right? So it might be two sides, but they are sending memos, and I'll put it on the screen. They're sending memos to Google, YouTube, Wikipedia, Pinterest, Meta, all of their platforms, and Twitter 1.0 to say, here are the things that we are asking you to ban. Memes, conversations about school board meetings has happened. So there's no question. Why would a rep like Dan Crenshaw lie to the American people and say, there's no evidence that our intelligence community is spying on Americans? It's a foolish thing to say, in my opinion. I mean, Mike, wouldn't you agree? I mean, what would a guy like Adam Schiff say to this?
Unless you're paid to say that, right? No, unfortunately, you have to keep up this illusion, and that's what gets you reelected each and every time. So, yeah, this is something that both parties have to be accountable for, right? The Cambridge Analytica scandal was of such big concern only when it was Trump's, organization and one other that were purchasing the information from Facebook. But, that conversation kind of died. Facebook got a fine and they still have a monopoly on the market, right? They have 5 out of the 7 top social media brands now. So how much has it really impacted their monopolization of it? And again, the bill has merits in at least from the perspective, but I think they're just leveraging whatever those merits are to just further, entrench power. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's so important to be so cautious when you enter into a bill. And that's why I have such dissent for the border bill. Everyone says, well, it's better than nothing. Well, it falls short. Why would we sign something that falls short or doesn't meet the mark? Let's continue to debate it and let's continue to narrow it down until it's the right answer for us. So it's very, very concerning.
It's for the charade of doing something. I'm doing something. It's funny when we talk about this. Why would Dan Crenshaw lie to the American people? This and that. 2 quotes come to mind. Well, one, and Mike, I know you like this one. If you want to know who controls you, look at who you can't insult. That was Voltaire. And the second one's a bit more lighthearted. It's George Carlin. It's a big club, and you're not in it.
Right,
It's
right.
true.
Yeah. Well, I used the word technocracy, and I used it incorrectly because what it technically means is that it's a government that rules based on the experts in a certain field. So the number one farmer in that country would then take over all of the agricultural legislation. Or
we're not a meritocracy anymore, unfortunately.
Well, what it leads to is cronyism.
I like the word
and monopolies.
uniparty.
Uniparty, exactly. Or I used bourgeoisie last week because we have the ruling class, the aristocracy.
I like that one.
Yeah, and then you have the haves and the have-nots, right? It's such a stark divide.
Which is a gap that's widening.
Exactly.
So our viewers should really take note of how shockingly fast they were able to put together a bill that was only 12 pages, was relatively single issue, and was immediately on the floor and voted on in such a short amount of time, when there are other bills that are stacked with many other issues, are thousands plus pages long, full of legalese and jargon that the common man and woman wouldn't be able to understand, right? And it takes months and months and months while they languish on the floor or never even make it there, right? So it's just shocking how this was able to get to the floor so fast and even voted on and passed in the House, right?
I wonder if OnlyFans, which is a sex-positive website, we're just going to call it that for this purpose of this question, right? Let's say that they had a 20%, 25% ownership stake from China or Russia, right? And however, right, progressivism is very sex positive and very free love, right? So would you think that they'd have the same response to something like that, where they know a lot of their constituency might stake their well-being in an app like that, and that's their career, right? I think it actually would probably be more detrimental to those people's careers on OnlyFans than it might be on TikTok. I think, like John was alluding, the TikTok folks have maybe more outlets, more skills, dare I say, more, ability to kind of be entrepreneurial, whereas the OnlyFans is, yeah, you work really hard on your body. I admire that in many cases. If, I wish I looked really good. I could take my shirt off all the time in front of 10 million people on the internet, but that's what they worked for, right? So that doesn't translate so much into building this network from adding value, right? So I think that might be a reason why they're allowing this kind of cultural decay, because a lot of their constituency on the progressive side says, we need this to exist. And I think it's actually going to go further. I think that we're going to see stuff like prostitution straight out is now going to become legal. I believe that. I really do.
No, I don't think we're far away from that at all. I think you're right about that. And if you say, well, why is OnlyFans, they're not going after it the way they will with TikTok? Well, adjust my tinfoil hat for a second. OnlyFans keeps you docile, keeps you in the house. And if you're getting whatever you need from your screen, you're keeping the population down, you're not a threat. You can't post pro-Donald Trump memes on OnlyFans. You can't take the wrong, quote-unquote wrong, meaning against the establishment view on global conflicts, right? You can't go on OnlyFans and be like, why are we sending billions of dollars to Ukraine? All of the wrong things that are trending on TikTok, you can't do on there. Because I think the biggest problem with TikTok, we all know what it is. Look at the top trends. I won't even say what some of them are. So we don't get in trouble. But the wrong thing trends on TikTok a lot. And a lot of the biggest creators endorse the quote-unquote wrong thing. And that's their real problem with it. That's why you get this 12-page little elementary school book report that they're rifling through Congress, because they need that thing done, because the people are waking up. The people know, and they don't want that. They don't want that. Stare at the OnlyFans girl, watch the Netflix, smoke the legal weed that's opening up in every shopping center over here in the tri-state area. Stay home. Don't challenge the status quo. That's all it is.
I know. Well,
that's all it is. You can call me crazy. That's fine.
Hey, I know you. I know you sometimes use tobacco or nicotine, I should say. And I was laughing one time. I was watching Tucker Carlson a couple of years ago, and he was saying how, exactly what you're saying, right? They feed us these poisons to keep us slow and stupid, and meanwhile, they make it sound like cigarettes are the worst thing ever. Meanwhile, nicotine, it gives you mental acuity. Listen, I never really felt it. I think there's negative health benefits to smoking, obviously, but maybe
I don't know about Zins, though.
Well, you talked about how we don't know the long-term studies on Ozempic. What do you think they have on
Chuck
Zins?
Schumer's coming for Zins.
I think the Democrats are going to lose too much political capital to really try to move anything on like OnlyFans, right? I think this whole TikTok ban is probably the most political capital that they could spend at this time right now.
My point is they're
accruing with their traditional
base. They don't want to ban OnlyFans. They don't care that it's a culture degradation. They don't. Right, they are seeing only this.
I'm sure there's extremely powerful lobbyists who pay large donations to their campaigns, and on both sides, because I know Republicans faced a lot of problems in certain states when they passed age verification laws around porn websites. So they got a lot of pushback, and if you actually saw, no more states in several years have uptaken that model, because despite how conservative or red they might be, they realized it was a losing proposition. Like I said, I think it's more of a lack of political capital. It certainly keeps people distracted, right? So that's definitely an added benefit to it.
Wait a second. Cultural decay is in vogue. It's what they want. Let's go back to the pandemic. Couldn't go to the gym. Couldn't go to work. You go to a liquor store, though. Go to a
Well, you
liquor
couldn't
store.
shop at the little corner store,
Well,
mom and
you-
pop, right? But you could go to Walmart and Target.
Right.
You can't take alcohol away from the bored masses. That's a recipe for a riot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could take to the streets and burn buildings down, but you can't go to church, you can't go to temple, you can't go wherever, you can't convene. I mean, it's spelled out in plain English. We all know what's going on. And this TikTok
I'd
is
say
just an
that those
extension
lobby
of that.
I'd say it's because this is the real problem, right? Is those alcohol industries have the money to be able to lobby the U.S. government. Like I was in the recycling industry,
yeah.
so my company was able to be marked as an essential company during the pandemic, right? So
good.
all of these organizations have the ability to lobby, but your corner mom and pop's convenience store doesn't have the ability to lobby like a
Right.
large grocer does. They spend billions of dollars a year to the United States to keep laws the way they are, or change them, or elect people and things like that. So I think that's the real danger.
So now
story
they
behind it.
close. So now they close, and they got to go on the government dole, and they got to vote for the people that keep the dole going, keeps them under their thumb. There are no coincidences.
Yeah.
There are no coincidences.
Mike,
People laugh when I say this stuff socially, and it's the fact. It's the truth.
I always
'cause
like
no
to
one has the
attribute.
courage to
I
say
always
it,
like to attribute things
right?
to stupidity shorter than malice. Unfortunately, I don't give humans enough credit to get things done on a larger
yeah,
scale.
But on a large scale, it
John,
is.
I see a lot of people say what you kind of said just now about how there's maybe this overarching agenda to keep the population fat and stupid, for lack of better description. And when I listened to
Totally agree.
I was going to say, I actually don't necessarily know that I subscribe to it. I think what Mike said it might not be malice. It's just kind of these circumstances have made our lives easier and easier and easier. And now it's to a point where it's to a detriment. It's so easy. But it rings back.
Why not both?
Well, fair enough. But
Why not both?
what I was going to say to your credit is I listened to Young-mi Park, the North Korean defector, on Joe Rogan. And she explained, I preferred her on Andrew Schultz, but when I watched her on Joe Rogan, she explained that the North Korean people have to go climb a mountain to pick flowers and collect crickets. That's what they eat. And they're starved intentionally by their government. So that's what they do all day. And that's what they have to worry about. They can't worry about marching down to downtown Minneapolis and burning buildings and looting Targets and knocking down police stations, right? They don't have time for that. They need to go climb a mountain to eat today or they die.
Okay. But I think there's a lot of gray area between Uber Eats and OnlyFans and climbing the mountain to go get crickets. There's a lot. There's a happy medium to be found in there. There's a lot of real estate in there.
That's fair.
Okay, there absolutely is.
Yeah, no, for
There's
sure.
there's a lot of common ground to be had in between those two
companies like
extremes.
companies like Uber spend a lot of money to get favorable legislation. They do weird things like just opening up and operating in countries against the law because they're so big, whatever the fine that could be levied against them, they'll worry about later, and they'll manipulate politicians to be able to say, like, but look how good it is for the long term, and they'll end up operating in the country anyway. When I was in Colombia, I could tell you that while Uber was illegal there, it seemed to work just fine, and you were able to operate the app and use it if you really wanted to. So
Why
I'll say
would it
that
be
much.
illegal in a country?
So the idea is that it would be a detriment to like a domestic like livery and transportation industry, right? So all
Gotcha.
those local taxi drivers are now out of business. But that's where I'm a free market capitalist. It's like it's nice when I go to a country like Colombia, which is doing a lot of things to improve. It still has many challenges, but I know when I get into a car with Uber that this driver has a background check done on them,
Yeah.
right? Like they're registered with the local police department. I can see
Right,
them
you
on
can't
the
mess
app. I
around.
can share their stuff with them. It's much harder to get ripped off, and I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. Like it definitely happens, but it's far, far less likely to happen under that scenario versus a random cab, especially if Spanish is not your first language, which it's not.
It's not for me, and that happened exactly to me. I traveled all across Europe to every country, and my wife and I, we've taken Ubers in every country. We've been so grateful because it's so
Yeah.
simple and accessible. You don't have to worry about speaking
Yep.
the language. And actually, in Spain, we were in Barcelona, and that was the only country that didn't have Uber. So we had to then we were
Right.
like, what do we do? We have to go to the hotel desk and ask them to call us a cab, which I guess they
Yeah.
did that in the 80s. I don't know. But then when we got dropped off, right, I kept my credit card bill from paying. It was supposed to be $20. $80. The guy obviously just robbed me, and he's driving halfway down the street by the time I notice it. So it was like,
are
you
you
can't
gonna do?
contact
Paid,
corporate support.
You paid the foreigner tax. You
That's right.
can't do much.
Yeah,
about it.
foreigner
right,
tax,
that's right.
exactly.
But hey, we had no problem here when medallions were assets passed through families, especially here on Long Island. Taxi and livery medallions were assets, and they got smoked, and it is what it is, man. It's like any other investment. It can go belly up. At the end of the day, like, technology and ease of use is what's going to rule the roost and what's going to be the best. You have to let it happen.
Yeah. So Mike, you touched on it briefly, and I want to actually ask you to kind of expand upon what happened. So you mentioned that Pornhub, I think, is pulling out of a specific state, in this case, Texas, and it was because, so they got banned in Texas, or not exactly?
So I remember it. I think it's Virginia, and it might also be Texas. But what they have is age verification, requirements on their website. So it would require you to enter like some document or number of yours, like your social security or driver's license number, to enter to prove that you are indeed over 18 years old. Obviously, most people are not going to want to put their personal identity, who are wary of such like things on the internet, right? I don't want to tie my personal identity to visiting this website. So that's their effort to discourage people from going to the website. Then again, people got crafty. They just used, VPN servers and things like that to make it seem like they're in a different state. So it ties back to that whole legislating morality. Yeah. If the issue is that people are consuming too much porn, you're going to get a lot more public trust by having an honest conversation from them, instead of creating like a forbidden fruit complex where you make it illegal and off limits, because now it just seems cooler and more worthwhile to pursue, So I think if we had an honest conversation about porn addiction with, millennials and Gen Z, and just saying, just as with anything when you're younger, right? Like, I'm going to tell my future son or daughter, right? Like, you're going to be put in situations where you're at a party, where you're going to either smoke or drink and stuff like that. And just remember that there's important components of having fun time as a kid, and those things could be replacing other beneficial habits or hobbies that you could be doing. And it's always important to find the balance of recreation of the two, right? When you're too busy masturbating to porn, you might be, creating bad ideas of what a relationship should look like, and or kill the desire to go seek in-person relationships when the instant gratification is much easier to get.
And then you end up like Josh at a Chuck E. Cheese getting a Sky Brie cake delivered to you, and then you
then you get to the extreme. Exactly.
Go down on that cake.
That is a fate worse than death.
Yeah, that gentleman's 29. We're early 30s. I think that could have been any one of us, guys. But to John's point, my point is, right, you had a certain upbringing, you had certain encounters, certain instances where you maybe were forced to step outside than to play on an iPad all day when you were 12, and that's right. It is actually pretty important. I'm learning as I have this baby.
We grew up and we saw the introduction and implementation of the internet. The Gen Z just grew up into the internet. They knew nothing but the internet, right? Yeah. So we're definitely, unfortunately, they're a case study. And that's why I like Bo Burnham's work. I mean, that guy is a next level George Carlin of our generation, right? And that's one of his works. One of his inspirations. He always talks about how, his big, inspiration in his work. And he just defines all of that, right, so well that his generation is just this case study on what it's like to just play with the chemical transmitters in your brain of instant gratification, dopamine releases, and all this content and all this choice and things like that. And it really robs you of the beauty of real life and the serendipity of things. It's unfortunate.
So I had never actually heard of Bo Burnham until I saw the movie Inside, which was his musical, and he made it himself during the pandemic. Honestly, remarkable. Loved it, watched it many times, listened to the songs off of it. And then I showed it to a couple people, and they were like throwing total hate at it. So I don't know if people like it or not. I loved it. But John, why don't you go? Because I want to go back to what happened in Texas with Pornhub. So you wanted to rebut what Mike said.
Okay. Wasn't rebutting it, adding on to it. In defense of Gen Z, right? The most online generation we've ever had. Some of the trepidation they might have, not only with physical relationships or going out into the world, or because there's an underlying theme of staying at home and staying in front of the screen, right? A lot of it could be, and this is what I marked down if you guys read it, being made fun of, right? Because you have more avenues now to become a meme, or more avenues now for people to talk about you on various different platforms. Back in the day, you did something stupid at school or something didn't go your way, whatever. Even kids now, you see who are athletes, you see high school sports highlights like, oh, you get dunked on. Back in the day, if you played basketball, you got dunked on. 200 people in the audience saw it, in the gym. Now, 250.7 thousand people saw it on TikTok, So there is that issue of you could be more online and you could be seen in a light you don't want to be seen in, and that creates some fear. Because it's a lot to put content out, even if you're not part of that generation, even if you're not part of anybody. Coop, goes back to a conversation you and I had on the phone this week. It takes courage to put yourself out there, right? Because we're a nation, a culture of critics. It's a lot easier to be in the comment section than it is to be in the content.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So much easier. And
it's like that super
and
bad
that's what
joke,
leads to a
right?
lot of
Like
this.
people don't forget, but unfortunately, before the internet, people
Yeah.
did forget. People might move on. I mean, you'll always have that one embarrassing story about you, but the internet makes everything permanent, right? With the digitization of everything,
Yeah.
it's stored forever, and
And plus, everyone
we
thinks
all
they have
did
a
things-
voice behind the keyboard.
Yeah.
We all did things that when we were younger we regret, or they're part of the mistake-making process that helps you grow into the person you are. And now your future employer could look at it and catch your entire Facebook history that even you thought you deleted, but you were tagged in some other people's photos, right? And it's like, oh, God forbid I had a beer when I was 17 at a high school party. Like these things come back.
I mean,
to
that's
me.
like the most nascent example I could think of. We're talking about adult content, right? Talk about ingrained forever. You can't even remove that if you try once it gets shared. And that's ruining people's lives without banning it.
There's a PSA ad of a girl, and she takes a picture of herself off the bulletin board at school and just keeps taking it off, and it's just there's more copies and more copies and more copies because you just can't do anything about it. She had sent something out she didn't want out there. It's permanent.
Yeah, that actually is a pretty cool illustration.
It's a
of
tough
that.
lesson.
I like that. But I was going to say there's examples of like public school teachers where pretty hot blonde lady or whatever, and they start posting their own pictures, and well, what do you know? They got fired from the school, but who freaking cares? They're making 3 times their salary in a month selling their bodies and images of such. And actually, they're not even being touched, right? It's not like they're have to go through this
Go for it,
torture,
then.
right? To go be a prostitute and have this John attract you and beat you up. Right? You don't have to deal with that. It's all online. In fact, it's automated messages.
I wish there was a different term for that.
It's democratized the ability to sell your body, right? So it's taken the pimps out of the equation. That's the added benefit of these services like that. I think we just need to do a better job as a society, as men. I don't think, unfortunately, there's that many female simps out there. I don't think it occurs as much of a problem with them. I'm not going to say
They're
that
buying
many,
Jack
but
Doherty
I think-
videos.
So the issue is definitely like amongst men, right? Is we have to set higher, standards and expectations for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Well, so here that's what brings me back to this Pornhub ban in Texas. I didn't know it happened in Virginia as well. So they put this age restriction in. I guess you have to make an account now, right? I remember when Facebook first came out. I made an account and I lied, right? You had to be like 14 or something. I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I made an account, got by that firewall. But I saw so many people on Twitter when that letter was released by Pornhub. And listen, it was a little bit misleading. It made it sound like they were banned in the state. And that's not true, right? The restriction was there. They thought it was too cumbersome. They decide they're going to pull out as a show of we don't agree with this action. But a lot of people in those comments were saying, this needs to be banned. Why didn't they go further and ban all porn? It's terrible. It's anti-Christian. It's destroying lives. And while you may agree with all of those things, right, again, we cannot over-legislate. It's totally anti-conservative to put a law in the books that someone can't do something. What are we talking about? This is a free country. They have to be able to invest their time and their energy how they want to. You cannot tell them not to. And that's another trend. We're seeing more and more people that sit in government determine what is okay, what isn't, and then they decide what rules to make. And I guess that's the negative part of having a representative democracy. They do, at the end of the day, get the decision. But maybe we need to find a way to send these single issue bills or these votings on these topics out to the people, because they very well may happen, right? That they want to ban porn, actually.
Pornhub has a problem as well as just the porn industry in general. I don't know if you've ever seen Hot Girls Wanted on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but it was a very interesting documentary. And it was about the whole process behind becoming a porn star. And it followed several pretty young girls who were first getting involved in there. And it shows the trials and tribulations and what it's like and the over-commodification of your body. And, porn looks so pleasant, for the 20 to 40-minute video or so, right? But it's actually this awful hours-long, days in and out process. And you really are just treated like meat, and how, dehumanizing how all of it is. And I think if people watch those documentaries and they realize, this is kind of really disgusting, what's going on behind the scenes of it, we might wake up to stop wasting our time trying to outlaw all porn and just make porn better and safer. I'll touch into later when we watch my clip and stuff like that. Let's get to the root of, consumer and data privacy issues, right? is the issue, really porn, or is it the fact that there's underage people that aren't consenting to all of their images being shared in certain ways like that? So those are really the root issues. Let's stop wasting political capital trying to just ban it all together. That would be my 2 cents.
Well, with that said, Mike, I am going to bring it up right now.
I know the other side is sincere, and we've not questioned that here today, and I won't question their sincerity. In fact, I think they've identified at least 3 problems that we have in America: moral decay of our society, invasion of Americans' privacy, and our competitiveness with China. But in this case, their cure is worse than the diseases. There are ways to get at these root problems. We just haven't taken it upon ourselves to address those root problems with actual legislative solutions that have been put forth here in Congress. For instance, Mr. Warren Davidson's The Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act would put a strong stake in the ground to protect Americans' privacy, whether it's from our own government or some foreign governments. That is the kind of thing we need. We need warrants in the FISA program. Our government shouldn't be able to spy on Americans without a warrant, yet they are. Let's bring that to the floor and vote on it. These are the kind of cures we need, not the bill that's offered here today. The bill that's offered here today, even though I know it's offered genuinely, it could also be named the Facebook Protection and Enhancement Act, because it's not the American people who are going to benefit most from this. It will be Facebook. Their stock is going to go up if this bill should pass the Senate. Now, what are some ways that we could improve this bill? Well, it should at least have a sunset. That's the only reason we're able to debate whether FISA should have warrants in it, because it sunsets. And what have we observed? FISA's been abused. That's my concern with this TikTok ban. It will be abused. If it's just banning TikTok and ByteDance and copies of that, why does it need to be 13 pages long? And I know they say it doesn't ban it. It forces divestiture of the company. This sounds like when American companies try to do business in third world countries and a dictator says, well, you can do business here. You just got to give me your company, and now you can continue to do business. We wouldn't let another country take over Ford Motor Company for selling Ford cars in their country. Yet that's what we're wanting to do here. And again, this is a cure that is worse than the disease. Who's going to be prosecuted by this bill? Is it ByteDance or TikTok? Will they be taken to court? No. They're the target of this, but how do you elicit or effect a ban on them? By prosecuting Americans. The only way you can ban TikTok and the other companies from being here is to say what this bill says, which is we will bring civil action. The government will bring a civil action suit against you if you so much as host them here. If you have an app store that allows them to be here, you're an American or an American company, and you will be the target of this bill. Those are the only people who can be pursued under this bill. And I know it's in order to go after TikTok, or so they say. Well, I would just close by saying that, we're sitting here with phones made in China. We're wearing suits made in China. We drove cars here with chips that are made in China. And they're our foreign adversary. And by golly, we're going to do something about it. What are we going to do? You're going to tell Americans they can't put a piece of software on their computer. They can't go to certain websites that the president designates. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this well-intentioned bill because it will have bad consequences, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I could not capture
That was really well
everything
done.
that I wanted to say, all in one, sentence without essentially just plagiarizing what he said word for word. There's no sunset, right? So this is what's so important about many pieces of legislation is that they have an end date. And as much as you might like a certain program or policy, when it has an end date, it forces that current legislature to, continue the program, and it gives you the opportunity to negotiate whatever improvements you might need to make it if you want to, or you really discuss the merits of killing it and replacing it with something else. Without in there that kind of sunset clause in this bill, you are giving indefinite power to the executive branch after, obviously congressional determination, but nevertheless, then you could just, wholesale 20% or more foreign-owned companies, just essentially push them in this process. And then the target of that legislation, right, is it's not ByteDance in this specific situation. You'd have to go after Apple or Google and tell them to stop hosting them on their stores. Yeah. Of course, they're probably going to comply, but that requires a lengthy legal response, right?
Yeah, it is scary.
And a lot of that, he said the quiet part out loud. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
He put it out in plain English, said the quiet part out loud, and he said the same thing. His analogy to the Ford Motor Group was great. It was, let's call it what it is. This isn't a business issue. This isn't a data issue. This is you're trying to suppress things. Also, if your suit's made in China.
I was going to comment on that, John, too. My suits are made in Italy, not China. But my chips are certainly made in China.
Man, that's where they should be made.
That's the unfortunate thing, which part of our Inflation Reduction Act episode is about. So it's definitely there's other ways to be combating China and other foreign adversaries, and it's not a historic handoff of power to the central branch.
Yeah, because once they get it, they don't give it back. Thomas Massey's one of my favorite senators because of what he says, but I also touch on it. He makes this little device. I keep saying I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it right now. The debt clock counter.
Is he the gentleman who keeps the debt clock?
He has a little lapel pin that's a digital debt clock counter. It's awesome.
So I have to ask you, Cooper, when you visited Europe and you went on a website, did you ever notice that the cookies question pop up that comes up? Have you noticed that it's slightly different there?
No, I have not.
So I touched on that a little, the quick and dirty write-up I put on the Substack for Elevated Thoughts. The difference there is the EU has the GDPR rule, and and part of one of those components among many other data privacy protections that we lack in the United States is this right to be forgotten, which is really important. It's that when you go to a website, any and all trace of your presence there is gone. And as much as we hate these invasive ads that seem to know exactly like what we were talking about either earlier in the day or the week, and then give you an identical, a product for exactly what you described, it's terrifying. It's because you don't have the right to be forgotten in the U.S. in the same way that you do in the EU. So when you opt out, right, in the U.S., you might notice that there's always that option that you cannot unselect, which is the necessary cookies. That is essential tracking data of you. In the EU, that is not a requirement. There is no such thing as essential cookies, right? So you have the ability more fully to just, opt out and say that I don't want any of my information tracked whatsoever. Only California has legislation right now that has consumer protection laws. And unfortunately, the EU GDPR rules is something like about $4 million fines. It's like about $2,500 versus $7,500 on the US law. So it's a cost of doing business rather than an actual onerous fine that would turn you away from doing such things. So it's really tragic that we don't focus on those things, right? We're focusing on banning TikTok for the wrong reasons, and there's really crucial data protections that we really should be talking about.
Yeah, so even when I hit decline...
So, Mike, it seems like we're projecting. We're projecting them with this.
Well, it's a convenient cover-up, right? It looks like you're being tough on China, as we discussed.
It's what I was saying before. It's the charade of action.
TikTok is a huge point of flow of disseminating information, right? Antithetical to the White House's story that they put out. So this is one of those armatures of the media that they have the least control of, right? So that's really the objective of this is to bring all armatures of the media under the same apparatus.
So then maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Is there apps transmitting data about what sweatshirt I looked at last night on what website to China? Is that really what they?
So every app is listening to you, right? They're all trying to collect this information. I mean, they know where you're looking at on a screen. That's the crazy part about it. They know where your mouse... Yeah, right. Yeah, you know where your mouse hovers, right? So, I mean, they don't talk about it in the same way when Edward Snowden ran off. They didn't deny anything that he claimed. They just said the way he disclosed it was illegal. And granted, the way the whistleblower activity, occurred was not within the framework of whistleblowing properly in the United States. But again, like I said, they never denied outright what he was saying, right? And that's just the whole point, is that they hope we forget about these things. So unfortunately, all of the commodifiable information about us is being harvested. And then in a social media realm, right? I mean, Facebook's doing it. It's to figure out what ads are most attractive to you? You know, how do you think you come up with those metrics of, you know, if you format a video this certain way, this is, you know, going to get you 10% more views and stuff like that, right? It all comes from that.
I mean, listen, when we talk about social media, I've been trying to grow on social media for 3 or 5 years now, and it is definitely interesting to see the difference between how different platforms react. In fact, I think that TikTok has one of the strongest algorithms. I find that if a video that I post gets let's say like 200 likes.
That's the real threat.
Well, it gets to 200 likes and then it starts to slow down, or sorry, 200 views and then it starts to slow down. What I find is I only get views that trickle in, but the people that are watching it actually like the video or comment on it. So while I get my initial 200 views and maybe get 10 likes, as soon as I get like 220 views, all of a sudden I have 20 likes. So they're able to truly, I think, determine exactly who to feed that video to, who will react to it and respond to it. And those are the only people that now get to see it, which reminds me, harkens back to what Elon Musk's comment is, right? A self-described free speech absolutist, but he then adopts a program of freedom of speech, not reach. So if you tweet something that is questionable or condemnable, it doesn't get any reach. So is your speech really free? And then another thing that he got grilled on, in fact, Twitter 1.0 was stronger than Elon Musk's X in this, is that he's so hyper obsessed with following the law. And specifically in the United States, we have the First Amendment. So free speech is the law of the land. But there's a great example now in India. He just banned this documentary that exposes corruption of their Prime Minister, President Modi. And it got banned from the platform, and Twitter or X acquiesced. Whereas in the past, under Jack Dorsey's leadership, they probably would have pushed back on that and said, hey, we're an American company. We have certain values. We are not going to choose to ban this. It was banned under Elon Musk. So, and there's other examples, right? Like Kanye West, he posted a swastika, a reprehensible image, right? And he meant it as a swastika, even worse. But he was banned for that. Is that freedom of speech or not? If you believe in freedom of speech, you don't believe in hate speech, right? And maybe there is some sort of middle ground where they say free speech is not absolute. You can't yell fire in a theater. That's not on fire. But I guess someone like Elon would say that you should be able to do that, right? And it's the best ideas that will rise to the top.
So the amendments in our Constitution apply only to our government, right? So this is where the really tricky part, and that's what has to do with some of that reforming around, you know, whether websites are responsible for moderating the content on there or not. There's merit to both sides of the argument, right? Like we have problems with manipulating our conversations, and then at the same time, though, would any company want to have a comment section if they're legally liable for what some random stranger says is on there, and then you have to pay many personnel or very expensive software to constantly maintain that? I don't think so. I think it would discourage a lot of conversation on any media piece, right?
What was the name of that bill or framework bill? That was...
we do have to look that up. We're going to inject that later. I definitely want to find the name of that because it's escaping me at the moment, and I don't want to say something wrong, so I'm not going to say anything at all in terms of the name.
Actually, I'll ask both of you guys this. Do you think the fact that TikTok is the avenue that lends itself most, Coop, as you were saying, like, you could say what you want, it's not going to reach anybody. The fact that TikTok's the greatest avenue for organic growth, do you think that's, like, part of what's going on with it? I do. The fact that, I mean, how many times do you go on the For You page and see someone blow up with something so innocuous from the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a tried and true algorithm.
I can't deny it. I mean, listen, do I scroll on TikTok too much? No, I probably prefer to scroll on X, and I just post over there. But you've heard the most meteoric rises to fame and riches through TikTok, I think, whereas you maybe have more of a grind on Instagram or Twitter. I don't think anyone's getting famous on Facebook.
But if you have a meteoric rise on TikTok, it means you can shoot to incredible heights as far as viewership and followers without the chance for the powers that be to get to you and tell you what to say and do. That's the problem.
I guess so. I mean,
you have an organic reach before the PR lady gets to you and says, say this and don't say that. Before the brand says, I'm taking away your brand deal if you say this or say that. That's the real problem. You can just go right to the top, doing it authentically, because authenticity is what resonates with people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is what I think lends itself to the problem, too. You could say the wrong thing, and then, oh, my goodness, this person's got a platform of 2 million people. 2 million people, we haven't had a chance to get to him yet. So I think, again, the quiet part out loud, as Massey was saying.
I think a lot of it is that backdoor pipeline that exists in a lot of tech companies, right? That allows them to give these warrantless searches or to tap in that kind of tracking information.
Yep.
And then you could just say these trumped up charges of national security. I mean, we've been saying that since the post 9/11 environment, right? Look at what the Patriot Act give us. And by no means is this new piece of legislation like the Patriot Act in terms of scope and its expansiveness. But it just all ties into this, you know, how many of our freedoms and certain liberties are we willing to let go in the name of preserving them, right? That's what it all comes down to.
Well, how many did we just go give away a few years ago, you know? And it's the same thing, too, with the TikTok ban, right? You make the boogeyman out of China, and you make it a morality thing. It's no different. They try to ban every gun under the sun, and it's like, oh, I don't really know if you should do that. Oh, you're okay with dead kids in school? Whoa, time. I never said anything like that. But they make it a black and white binary system, 1 versus 0. So if you say to someone, oh, I disagree with the TikTok ban. Oh, so you're pro-China, you want them to have all your, know where you live, this, that. No, calm down. There's some gray area here.
Yeah.
There's places to be found, you know, and that's what we're completely losing.
Yeah. For the record, it's Section 230. That's the law that they were debating
That's
for a
it.
while to say, is it a platform or is it a publisher? So I think the social media companies ended up winning in the end. Their platforms, and the users are the publishers. And listen, I think I agree with that. But yeah, you have to find
Totally
that gray
agree.
area, John, because you don't necessarily want the girl who's going gang, ice cream so good. Right, you don't necessarily want her political leanings. Maybe some people do, but as soon as she then starts spouting,
But it's
out,
her right to blow up, though, man.
well-
it's her right to blow up because this is going to tie the whole
I hate to
episode
agree with-
together, right?
I hate
Wait
to
a
agree.
second.
Go, sorry,
Why
go
did she
ahead.
blow up? Why did she blow up? Because people, I don't know how. I listened. Did I admit to an affinity for ASMR before we started? I did. That's okay. But people want to see that. People are paying her. People like it. People like the ice cream. It's not for me, I'll tell you that. But if there's a market for it, just like there's the market for the OnlyFans girls, just like there's a market for people that want to watch stuff on the internet without putting their license in, you got to give it to them, right? So your guys' point is over the validity of it. Should they be allowed to do that? You take the political angle. I'm going to take the socio angle, right? The socio-political angle of personal behavior. These things are always going to exist. They're there if you want to consume them. It's just a matter of whether you should or not. Right? Do we need to know the ice cream girl's political leanings? No, we absolutely don't. But is it her right to go out there and do the silliness on there and chomp at the ice cream things on the screen? Yeah, honestly, it is.
That's why we're trying to go out and hopefully inspire a whole new generation to you know, be interested in civics and whatnot. That's what we're doing here today, right? I guess. Yeah.
But things are cyclical. They always come back around. Because you're going to need certain things, right?
Yeah.
Because Cooper, you were saying, oh, there's going to be so many guys. We were talking about OnlyFans. So many guys that, you know, because these 30% of girls identify as LGBTQ and they can't find anybody. I would turn that around. And say, I feel bad for the girls because you have all these guys sitting at home watching OnlyFans girls or paying $5 tips to watch the girl munch the ice cream. That like, we're going to find a guy that's actually going to give you a semi-decent life that you can like spend quality time with, you know? So in turn, people are going to realize that and there's going to be a shift like, oh, I got to become that kind of person. I'm rotting away here. So I think all of these topics we're talking about on a grand scale, we got to collide. We're on the downslope. You know, maybe we got to become, to talk about the last episode I was on, maybe we got to become the Wally people a little bit. Maybe we got to crash and burn a little bit. It's going to take that to rise back up and realize, oh, we got to change. It's all cyclical.
Yeah. Well,
it's all cyclical. And as we trend towards this commie-style censorship, ban the app, ban the platform, whatever it may be, we're going to realize it's bad and there's got to be a revolt. But hey, you know what? I'm down for a revolt. Hope you guys are too. It'd be exciting.
I think they tried
all
that
cyclical.
on January
Careful.
6th. They got
yeah,
thrown
I don't
in
know if
jail.
that's going to work out.
I unequivocally
No, I wasn't
condemn a
talking like
revolt
that.
in
I
way.
wasn't talking like that.
No violence of any form.
I mean a revolt in being the change you want to see in the world, right? And how you
Exactly,
live. I'm not talking
exactly.
about taking to the streets like playing COD IRL. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you live in a way where you have an aversion to these things we're talking about. Okay,
Right,
I don't
right.
need. I already live in fear. When I lived at home when I was in college, I used to tell my little sister, if I'm not home and somebody knocks on the door looking for me, what's the first thing you do? Oh, I throw your computer into the shower and I turn it on. You're exactly. I live in fear of that enough, so I was not saying that.
I'm actually of the other school of thought, John. I'm kind of glad you said that because I always say if the government wanted to come into my computer, hell, come look. What are you going to find? I write my freaking worst opinions on Twitter all day, every day. But seriously,
Yes, but
I have nothing to
never
hide.
give it up willingly.
I
You give
get
up-
it.
never
Believe
give
me,
it up
I get
willingly.
the slippery slope argument. I'm just saying that what the hell am I looking at? I'm looking at, you know, like I said, what sweatshirt do I like and I want to buy from Kith next week? Like that's the extent of what I look at on the internet. So it's like, What comes by
gonna
on
be
me,
boring for
please?
them.
Hello.
It's gonna be boring for them,
Okay,
right?
so now we know Cooper's history on his computer. No Chechen war videos from the early 2000s. Okay.
A couple of Cold War YouTube
nothing
videos
crazy.
informational, but
Yeah, no. Incidentally, I did bump into.
I'm
some
gonna
Chechen
keep
war
throwing my
videos,
computer
actually.
into the water. Yeah.
that's fine. I think I understand it. But no, guys, listen, we talked on a lot. We definitely touched on the cultural decay. I think we can all agree on that. A lot of times it takes hitting rock bottom to make a course correct. And hopefully with meeting of the minds like we are doing right now, we don't have to reach a rock bottom, and there will be some sort of shift that happens as more people begin to engage in discussions like this and nuanced conversations and dissect what's going on. So with that, I think we are going to wrap up. But guys, what I wanted to mention was, Mike, you released an article recently on Substack that goes into, you mentioned a lot of the stuff that we talked about today on TikTok. So we're going to link that below. And then, John, I know you've got another Substack coming out, an article. We're going to kind of try to build off of what we talk about here so we can keep things going and continuous, and the Elevated Thoughts media empire will continue to grow. I'm pretty excited about that. But guys, thank you very much. I'm really grateful again for you to come on here. On this weekend, Mike, you and I are going to talk about Social Security reform, and I'm going to make fun of how Nikki Haley wants us to get older before we can retire. No, I'm retiring at 50 if I can.
Yeah, right.
So, no, I think we did a good job, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Always a pleasure.